This tutorial is for controls engineers, operations professionals, or anyone who wants to test Timebase in a home lab environment. This is a fully operational industrial historian collecting real-time data, training process variables, and ready for production use. We built this entire stack using Docker and Portainer from 0 to fully operational in less than 17 minutes. By the end of this video, you'll have Docker and Portainer installed, a Timebase historian collecting data, the Explorer web interface up and running, and you'll understand how Docker networks work so you don't hit the most common mistakes. All the commands, Docker compose file, and all the detailed documentations is in the link in the description below. You'll literally be able to copy and paste your way through this entire installation. So here's what we're going to be covering today. Part 1 is installing Docker. Part 2, setting up Portainer. Part 3, deploying Timebase, and then configuring the first data collection. Let's go.
Part 1, installing Docker.
Here we are with a clean, fresh Ubuntu server, starting from scratch. So from step 0, we need to install Docker, install Portainer, and then we're going to use Portainer to get Timebase running. I already SSH'd in. We know the IP address and that we meet the minimum required specs. So we're going to dive right in. First, we got to update our system on a clean install, make sure we have everything where it needs to be. And then we're going to install our prerequisites for Docker. All right, and then once the prerequisites are installed, then we're going to add the official Docker repository. Again, just copy and pasting through the repo. No need to write any of this down. Then we're going to install Docker. We always want to do an update after we install the latest things. So we're going to let that run. And then we're going to run our install Docker script. All right, and now that Docker is installed, we're going to check our Docker version. This will confirm for us that Docker did in fact install, and there it is. To test this, we're going to run the hello world container. That will make sure that all the prerequisites and everything's working. There it is. So now that we have Docker installed, we are going to add Docker to our user group to make our lives easier later. We're going to enable Docker to start on boot. So anytime we start up this computer, this new server, it will automatically start Docker. And that's it. Docker is ready to go. Next step is to install Portainer.
Part 2, installing Portainer.
First thing we do when we install Portainer is to create a volume for the Portainer container, because Portainer is a container that runs inside of Docker. And here it's just pulling that Docker container. So you'll see what it's doing under the hood here. Now that Portainer is running, we're going to check our Docker containers to see which containers are running. Here we see that Portainer is in fact running. And that is all we should have to do from the command line for the rest of this tutorial. And again, everything we did was copy and paste from this repository, and nice and easy. So now we're going to go to the IP address. We're going to type in our IP address for Portainer, making sure to do https:// the IP address and then port 9443. You're going to get this connection is not private. It's a self-signed certificate, so it's not going to be happy about it. But we can just go down to advanced and proceed. It's going to prompt us to make a password and username. We're going to leave the original admin user in there and just make a new password. And once we put that same password in twice, we can hit create user and get started.
Part 3, installing Timebase stack.
All right, now that Portainer is installed, we are ready to start our first Docker stack. We can click on the Get Started. And before we install a stack, we're going to give a quick tour through what's going on here. We've got 2 containers, 2 images, and 3 networks running. We're going to see that we still have our Hello World container here. So we're just going to get rid of that real quick, just for good housekeeping. And we're going to get rid of that image as well. And we're doing all of this from the user interface in Portainer rather than the command line that we started with, making it nice and easy for anyone to get started with. So now that we're ready to make the stack, we are going to navigate to stacks, press the button to add a stack, and then following the instructions, we are going to give it a name. We're going to select repository, and we're going to copy and paste this URL right here. And then from there, when we start this, deploy the stack. And now in the background, it is running all of those same Docker commands that you saw when we were running the Portainer command, but it is doing it for you in the background, pulling the images of the containers and starting them up based on the Docker Compose stack at the URL we provided. All right, now that that Docker stack is up and running, we can click into here and we can see that we have the Explorer, a Historian, and a Collector.
Part 4. Configuring Timebase settings.
All right, now that these are running, we can navigate to the Collector in our browser. This is the first place we're going to start. It will have defaulted us to use localhost as our target historian. We need to change that because localhost will point to the container that is running, and the Collector and Historian are running in different containers. So we need to get that to the host name of the Historian container, which we named as Historian. And then we're going to save that. Now that we added our target historian's correct host name, validated the port, we can press play here, and that will start the Collector. You can see in the status that the Collector is running. That means that there is data being sent to the historian. We can go to the historian and see what that data looks like. Here we have our Juice Factory data set, which was automatically created because a new data set was set as the target. We can see that there are 56 tags. We could set a purge age or purge size if we wanted to. We can click into the Juice Factory data set to see a list of all the tags. And all of these with this Collector have our unit of measures and our fields pre-formatted for us. But if they weren't, we could go in and change or overwrite all of these by editing that tag. We could add a better description, a different description, we could add more fields, and so on. But we're not going to do that because this Collector is already doing it for us. The Timebase Historian is exposing a full API. We can show you some examples here. We can get a list of all of our historians through this REST API. Here we can see that we have a historian data set named the Juice Factory. We can create new data sets here. We can delete data sets here, and we can get tags through this API. So we can provide a data set and we can have a contain string. We can look at our historian data set to see what these want to be. So let's say anything that has 131 FT006 PV and hit execute. It is going to tell us that we have a tag in our historian that matches that string. If we were to take out the 006, we're going to get multiple tags returned through that data set. I am going to take the name of that tag, 131 FT001 process variable, and we're going to go a little bit further with it. We just saw that we could get the tags. You can even delete tags from here. Sometimes that's a pretty difficult thing to do in Historian, is to delete tags, but if desired, Timebase makes that easy for you through their API. And then we can read data from multiple tags in a data set. We're going to take our data set of the Juice Factory, and we're going to take our name of the tag that we found up here, and we are going to leave the REST default and hit execute. And now we got our last value of that tag. If you want to do a relative end time, we can say we want to start with all data that is 1 hour before now. And now we can see all of our data for that tag for the last hour, all through the API. You can integrate with any front end or back end or low code service. You could do Grafana, Node-RED, Ignition, or anything else that you want to integrate with this API, even your own custom services. You can even write data to tags in data sets through the API as well. And now that we've gone through the Historian and the Historian's API, we can look into the Explorer. All right, so here we are on the Explorer page. This is what it looks like before you've configured anything when you start it up fresh. We're going to get started. That will create a new trending screen for us where we can then add an item. In this case, an item is a tag in a data set in the Historian that we have connected to this Explorer. And we can start to search and filter based on various things. From here, I'm going to start with the flow transmitter process variable. We're going to add that to our timeline up here, which we can drag around and get the smaller window, which we're going to use to display the time slices that we see below. We're going to add our state, and we're going to add another that is our product. So now we know what product we were running and what state it was in this band right here. We can also add a batch ID that will tell us which batch was running at any given time. If we accidentally added something that we don't necessarily need to see in our flow, we can click over on the side, click on the little card, and remove it from the band. If we want to add another band, we can do that by hitting add band. We can add items to these bands, and we can just keep making more and more things on our screen. And that's it. In less than 17 minutes, we went from a fresh Ubuntu server to a fully operational Timebase Historian system with live data collection and visualization. Here's what we accomplished. We installed a Docker and Portainer. We deployed a 3-container Timebase stack with a single collector, the Historian, and the Explorer. We configured the collector with proper Docker networking and started collecting simulated data and built our first trends in the Explorer. In future videos, we'll show you how to connect to real MQTT data. If this was helpful, give it a thumbs up and subscribe for more industrial automation tutorials. Drop any questions in the comments. We read them all. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.